The SCA is one of the answers that we believe FedEx has brought to the table to say, how do we better deal with contingency situations? So what this is not is a successor to the ISPA, the Independent Service Provider Agreement itself. So the new SCA, a lot of people have been wondering, is the ISP model going away? And are we going to see this taking its place? And the clear answer that we have come to just in the research we've done, Josh, is that no, that is not the case. The ISP is not going anywhere. And I think as we go through this, it's going to be clear and apparent why that's the case. But we do not anticipate that the ISPA is going to be going anywhere. The standard contract for the vast majority of FedEx Ground contractors, as it's currently constituted, will continue to be the standard in the way that the businesses are run across the nation. So I guess a way to put it might be a modified ISPA, because again, it's not really a new contingency contract per se. It's just kind of one of the things that FedEx is trying and piloting in a few different markets, most often in contingency situations, we'll put it that way. So the bottom line for this is it's a one-year term agreement. The SCA is a one-year term, and it is being rolled out in pilots in various markets across the country. We don't know all of them. We just know that we've seen some screenshots and seen, hey, this is being rolled out here or there. It doesn't seem to be like it's going region by region or anything like that. It's kind of just, we're trying it here, we're trying it there. So we don't anticipate that it's anything that's going to be widespread anytime soon, if ever. So essentially what's happening is when the current ISPA term expires for certain contractors, FedEx is giving them an SCA option. So in other words, do you want to renew your ISPA, or do you want to start an SCA, a service capacity agreement? And it's sort of being an either or situation is what we're finding. Now, there may be some situations out there that are very extended contingency situations. So for example, if there's a contract that's not able to be serviced and there's boxes that are weeks or months behind, we might expect FedEx to assign this as an SCA agreement to somebody rather than like a cartage agreement, which is basically any third-party carrier with capacity that can come in and get the job done. We will pay you to do it. That would be a cartage agreement. This is sort of somewhere in the middle of that and the full-on ISPA, which is, look, bring some trucks. You do have to have the branding. You got to wear the uniforms. You got to use our scanners, et cetera, et cetera. But essentially just get the boxes out the door and we're happy. That's kind of, if we could boil it down, that's kind of what we're looking at here. So some contractors are finding it profitable enough that they are renewing it after their one-year term. So there are some that have been running it for more than a year. They're finding that it is actually better than the ISPA. And then just like your, standard cross-section of contractors across the country, some are failing at it, right? So the ISPA is good for some it isn't. We're seeing the same thing with the SCA. Some people are finding that it's difficult to recruit drivers, to retain drivers. But again, you're going to find that in markets all across the United States, depending on the conditions there and the individual situation that the contract is in. So it is better money on a per stop basis. So I will say that it does look like the compensation and the charges that we see are better on a per stop basis. Now, overall, if you add in the fixed, and we'll talk about the different components in a second, but it does look like if you're doing it right, this is a fairly lucrative contract that you can take advantage of. But again, we're going to get to the good, the bad, and the ugly here as well. So it's not just all roses. This cannot be assigned or sold. So this is not something that, FedEx says, here you go, and you can go capitalize on it at a later time. No, essentially is when you're done with it at the end of the term, if you don't want to continue, it's signed back over to FedEx, and then it's, essentially given to the next person or whatever. It cannot be reassigned or sold. And again, the standard schedules of ISPA will apply except as modified by the SCA. So again, it is just a modified ISPA, but it's modified in key ways. So let's kind of talk about what that looks like. So the volume you get in an SCA is assigned to you based on your capacity in terms of trucks and what we call engineered route type. So FedEx last mile engineering will go in and say, we feel that this territory, this mix of streets, this zip code or whatever is best serviced by, I don't know, let's say 6 transits and 3 P1000s. So they will offer an SCA to you that will have a mix of 6 transits and 3 P1000s that you might have to deploy in a different mix on different days of the week. So they'll give you a total weekly resource number that you need this many trucks for the whole week. And then they'll give you a number of daily resources that you need to staff. And you'll know the night before, you'll have a weekly forecast ahead of time to say, next Monday, you're going to need 6 resources according to what we forecast. And then Sunday night, they'll send you an actual screenshot of, here's the way we've set up the plan. Here's what you actually need to run. So if they do make a change, and it is possible that they could make a change, but in general, they're going to stay close to what their forecasted data says. That's kind of the whole reason they might do this is they're getting data and they don't necessarily want to say the contractor makes all the changes. We're going to handle the changes. You come in, provide the capacity to get the boxes out the door and service it that way. You can have the boxes once they get to the belt, right? The volume that you do get could be assigned within reasonable proximity to your area as well. So you will have a general vicinity that you'll have stops assigned to you in. But let's say that the contractor in the zip code next to yours is failing, and they might need some contingency help on that contract. Well, FedEx will now have the flexibility under the SCA to pull some of those stops off of them, maybe the packages that are the most overdue, and give them to you and your drivers and give you the opportunity to make the revenue from those stops. So again, you will have a general vicinity that you will be in, but you will have those proximate areas around you that you might have to deliver as well. Now, again, you will get the vehicle breakdown at every week. They were going to have a meeting with you and say, you need this many resources next week. Can you supply these? And then you'll get a stop charge and you will get a fixed charge based on the vehicle mix that is forecasted. So the stop charge is no matter how many stops you deliver, you're going to get this stop charge. Now, one good thing is you will get a surge stop pay as well. So if you have what we know now as a daily stop threshold, it will essentially be probably a weekly stop threshold. It might be daily, but if you exceed a certain number of stops per day or per week, you will get your standard stop charge in addition to a surge rate that helps you accommodate for that higher volume. The fixed charge is based on the size and type of vehicles that you're being asked to provide. So for example, if you've looked in DRO or dynamic route optimization, how we plan out our routes, if you look in there right now and you go to the vehicle cost profiles, the vehicles that are larger are considered more expensive, right? It just makes sense. It's more repair and maintenance costs required. They're less efficient on fuel. Just in general, it costs more to operate these vehicles. So you will have a higher fixed charge the bigger the vehicles that you're asked to provide. So if you have all transits versus all P1000s in 2 different SCAs, you're probably going to get more of a fixed if you have the step van routes versus the transit routes. Now, each night, you're going to get a screenshot of DRO, and the terminal is the one who is running the DRO. So that's one of the big points that we've seen, Josh, is that when FedEx gives you an SCA contract, it's true. Your BC does not have to stay up until, all hours of the night trying to get DRO right. So that's taken out of their hands. But on the other side of that coin, you are not going to have any control of how full your trucks get in the morning. So the way this is going to work is they're going to set the routes up to be a certain way in DRO, send you that screenshot, and we don't know what all is going to be included in that screenshot from DRO. It's going to be the number of resources at minimum, but it's probably going to tell you things like what's the cubic footage that's loaded on this vehicle, how many stops, et cetera. So you're going to get some information the night before on what kind of packages and stops you're going to have on your different routes. But if a truck gets bulked out, if it exceeds the capacity, then one good thing is that, yes, your truck will go out very full. But if there's boxes that don't fit, those boxes in most cases are not going to be counted against your service. Now, that's a pretty revolutionary change from what we're used to on the ISPA agreements, which is you are responsible for every last box that comes down that belt. And it's your job to figure out a truck to put it on if it doesn't fit on the truck that you've assigned it to, right? So now, if it doesn't fit, FedEx is like, well, that's on us. We'll just let it sit on the dock for another day or whatever, and we'll eat that. Now, the one big caveat here that I want to make sure I mention is that naturally you might think, well, hey, this is pretty nice because I can leave all my oversized, what we call ICs, our incompatible boxes. I can leave those off to the sides and fit 20 more small boxes, 20 more stops onto my truck. If you start doing that, you will have an uncomfortable conversation with your P&D manager saying, no, this is not how this works. We are going to start counting these guys against you if you leave these packages here for too long. Now, if it's a day or two, they're going to understand if you have to make a decision between some envelopes and some small boxes versus a big box for one day. Okay, that's fine. But you better find a way to get that big mattress out the very next day, or there may be potential blowback from FedEx. Now, here's another good thing about this. The trucks are loaded to capacity and they're planned to be loaded to capacity. But let's say there's a glitch and DRO, as we know, isn't always accurate. And let's say one of the trucks or two of the trucks come in light and you're able to cut a truck from your route plan. This is a kind of a double-edged sword with the SCA. Because on one hand, if you can run all of your packages that are assigned to you with fewer trucks than you were planned to have by engineering in DRO, you will still get the same amount of fixed charge for that day. So if you were set up to have 8 trucks and you can get all your boxes on 7, you're going to get paid for 8 in addition to all your stop charges. But that cuts the other way as well. If you decide you want to run extra trucks, you will still get paid for all the stops you deliver, but you will not get paid the fixed rate that goes along with whatever vehicle you run, in addition to the 8 trucks that were planned for you to need for that day. Okay, so again, it's a double-edged sword. If you're really clever and creative, you're really good at playing Tetris with the trucks, you can maybe make this work to your advantage. Otherwise, I would plan on the package handlers stuffing every last cubic inch of these trucks full of stops and packages to make sure that they're going out at full capacity. So just a quick overview if you missed it, the charges, I'll hit this, and then a couple of things real quick at the end here, Josh, I'll hand it back over to you. So you're going to get a weekly service charge. That's your fixed charge. We're all used to seeing that. Okay, that's based on the vehicle mix, the size and number of vehicles you're requested to have for the week. Okay, so that's your fixed charge. You're going to have a stop charge, which is typically we're seeing higher than what you'd see under an ISPA Schedule C stop charge. And then you're going to have a surge stop charge, which again, if you're familiar with like peak season, you already get something like this. If you exceed a certain number of stops on a given day or week, you'll get even more revenue on top of your existing stop charges. Now, one notable exception here, there is no package charge. So if you have a bulk stop, this could potentially be seem like a penalty, right? Because you're not getting paid. Now, the package charges under the ISPA are generally not huge. You might get between 10 and 20 cents per package or something in that range, right? You will not get that at all. So any amount that was offsetting the cost of spending a couple extra minutes at a stop because you have 20 boxes instead of 1, that is going away, hopefully being offset by the increased stop charge. So a couple of things that I'll just say real quick in terms of the impact to the network. So first of all is going to be driver retention. Now, we all know what drivers want. And if you're new to the space, you can probably imagine this along with me, right? If your driver comes in every day and their truck is overflowing to the brim with packages coming out the back, you think that driver is going to want to stick around very long unless they're just a glutton for punishment? Probably not, right? So this is going to take a kind of a very mentally tough type of driver that really, really likes a challenge. And again, if this is an area that services a busy downtown district or a lot of stop density, some drivers, I can just tell you from personal experience, some drivers are just absolute animals. They want to go in there to a situation like that and prove that they are the top dog in the building and they can deliver more than anybody else. Those are the kind of drivers you're going to want on territories like this. But in general, you might expect in some of these areas, there might be a higher rate of attrition on an SCA contract due to the fact that they are packing these trucks full. Now, the next thing is, it's not going to be a surprise, is the station management has told us, the contractors we've talked to, that, hey, DRO isn't accurate. What's going on here, right? And so we've told you guys about that before. The forecast of volume for the next day is often, it's got some errors in it, sometimes to the extent of 10 to 20% variance between the stops that you actually see the next morning and what DRO predicts. Station management is dealing with that, right? They're seeing it from their end. But now the good news is it's their problem. It's not your problem, right? So now you do have to deal with the packages they send you. If they say, here's your truck and it's full at 600 cube and you know that that truck is really should only have 450 cube, well, that's just the way it is, right? DRO said it, DRO has spoken, and that's what you got to deal with. So expect some issues around DRO and driver attrition. And then finally, the impact to the market itself. So again, the bottom line is, I want to emphasize this. The ISP model is not going anywhere anytime soon. Okay, we feel confident that this is something that we're going to be able to see for the foreseeable future. It just makes more sense. I mean, if you think about it from this DRO perspective, right? Who stands to gain or lose the most if the volume forecast is off? Well, it's the contractors, the person who's having to get the boxes the last mile out the door, right? So if you put the contractor who has the most to gain or lose from that process of, hey, I know that for a P1000, I want to put 450 cube versus 600 cube. Put the contractor in charge of that. You're going to have a much happier driver base, and you're ideally going to have a lot more efficient operation of your routes if the contractors are in charge. So again, I just don't see FedEx going back on that on a wide scale basis. The only time they might be doing that and putting these SCAs into permanent rotation is going to be on these heavy contingency areas where, you know, they may have gone through 6, 7, 8, 9 contractors that it's just such a challenging market. They're going to have to try something different, pull some different levers, right? This is the kind of area where we're going to probably see an SCA, Josh. So I'm going to kick it back over to you. From what we've seen, that's kind of the overall breakdown of the SCA.